Hello and welcome to 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk. Well, sports fans, yours truly, Coach Kevin Bull Jones, just got off the field from football practice, getting ready for our showdown this Friday night. But this is a big weekend coming up, so I had to bring in some heavy artillery to talk some Bama versus those Hurricanes football that's coming up this Saturday. So sports fans, I had to bring in some big time guys to come sit with me and let's talk for a few minutes about football. So if you enjoy the show, please share. Please share. Come on in and share because we're going to have some fun. I am with the man, the big guy on the block. Right now, I call him Johnathan Lewis, but he's got to be the big fellow on the block with his own college show and talking Tide football and talking about everything that's going on with those guys down there in Tuscaloosa. How you doing, Johnathan Lewis? Good to see you.
It's good to be alive, man. Made it through the pandemic, ready to get this stuff rolling back again for college football, right? I know you got to be excited to be getting back on the football field and having everything normal, right? Like back to normal. But, oh, yeah, great day, man. College football's coming up, so I couldn't be more excited. Can't be more happy than this, I don't think so.
Well, listen, I follow you on Twitter, and I have enjoyed watching some of the stuff you've done, and you and I have and I appreciate you reaching out to me so long ago, getting a chance to watch some of my shows. And I would be remiss to say, and I know my producer, Jeremy Long, is laughing right now behind the scenes because I usually am the one wearing all of the Bama gear and taunting Vincent Turner, my brother from another mother on this show, because he knows I am Roll Tide for life and I don't have anything on because I'm literally just coming out of practice from North Atlanta High School. So sports fans and all Roll Tide fans, I cannot believe that finally I got Johnathan on the show and he's showing out with all his gear and I don't have my gear on. And this will be the last time this happens. I promise you, sports fans. But I'm glad to have him with me. And we can roll our sleeves up and talk about the showdown. Hadn't happened since 1993.
Oh, my gosh, man. This has been a long time coming. I'll be honest with you. I've been looking forward to this since Nick Saban started doing these neutral site games. I don't know if you remember far back as far as Virginia Tech, Clemson, right, in the 2008, 2009 seasons. And I'm like, okay, when is Miami going to roll up on this list eventually? And finally, like you said, since the 92-93 national championship, here we go.
Well, it seems like, of course, Bama's 4-1, leading the series. But the last time we talked about playing 1993. But at this particular time, now we're coming off, and I say we're, being the fan that I am, we're coming off a fantastic, memorable season, 15-0. Slayed everybody that walked on the field with us, but we had a lot of people graduate to playing on Sunday afternoon. And I can tell you right now, as a coach, and being a defensive guy, and understanding some parts of what happens in the odd front and things that Coach Saban does with the three safety scheme that he uses, it's going to be a great game to watch. From a coaching standpoint, I think that the defenses, both of them are probably going to be a little ahead of the offenses. But, boy, I tell you what, Alabama's loaded with when Henry comes in from Tennessee. I just started saying Henry first. I'm going to let you finish the name. I'm going to start with Henry first. He comes in, and we already have Will Anderson from Dutchtown High School, former school that I was head coach at. But Will Anderson is a wonderful kid from a wonderful family, wonderful mom and father and siblings. Just a great work ethic. The BC's going to be this season with Chris Allen, all those other kids, Justin Igbe. And listen, defensives going at each other. I tell you right now, I feel like everybody thinks this is going to be a big high-scoring game. I don't know about you, Johnathan. I don't see that.
Nope.
Tell me what you think.
No, first of all, this defense this year, I've said one thing, and I've been saying it now for the past probably 5 months. Pete Golding has no more excuses. This has got to be the defense to prove that he's the guy to be the defense coordinator that Nick Saban brought him in to be from UT San Antonio, right? Like, this is what we've been expecting. Injuries from the linebacker position has been called, it causes issues, right? So this is the team. When you're talking about bringing back Malachi Moore, who had an outstanding freshman season. You get your Quincy McKinstry or Kool-Aid, right? Coming in, showing out as a freshman. You're talking about the depth of defensive line. The dude I'm wanting to see, by the way, LeBron Ray, get healthy, get off the injury list, man, and do his thing. Like, this has got to be the time. And we're not even talking about DJ Dale, Philadelphius Mathis, Josh Jobe at corner, Jalen Armour Davis at corner, Jordan Battle, you know what I mean, at safety. The list can go on and on. So to me, like, the defense on both sides in Miami as well definitely outweigh the offenses. And it's not even close. But I expect to see huge, not little, huge top 5 defense this year. No excuses. So
well, here's the thing that and having again the chance to understand some things that go with the odd front and the concepts and the man press man off man principles that Bama uses. Just a joy in watching all those coaches work and having to venture to come to the camps and watch Coach Saban and the coaching clinics. You learn so much. So many of those guys are so good at what they do. And you would agree with this, I'm quite sure. Some of the talent level, the best in the nation. Here's the thing. They're not defensively. Bama's not going to be. I think the only thing that scares me is playing Lane Kiffin because he was there. He understands how to attack the defense. He understands exactly what's going on defense side of the ball. He understands all the checks and everything. I faced that on the high school level, and I'm not going to name the particular schools, but, facing some of the schools that I used to coach at, and, they know what I'm doing if we coached together before. So it's tough. But this game, De'Aaron King, who I think is going to go down as one of the best short-term quarterbacks that Miami's had, and they've had some great ones. But coming off of injury, ready to prove himself again. But everybody talks about 19 starters coming back. Here's what you have. You have experience with De'Aaron King, and then you have Bryce Young, who threw 22 passes the whole season. So, and, I'm taking nothing away from Bryce Young, but, this is his time to shine, and you and I both know it, and he's going to be under the big lights at 3:30 Eastern time and down here in the ATL, and it's going to be magic. But everything he's going to do is going to be scrutinized and critiqued, because he is who he is. And I think the only thing that's going to save him in this game is he's got a stable of running backs that can tote that ball. They're not Najee Harris. They're just a compilation of young men that could get it done. So I don't think there's as much pressure on him. What do you think?
So to speak back actually to the Ole Miss thing, there's 2 games I circled for this year's schedule. And a lot of people thought I was crazy. I said, no, A&M is not one of those games. The first one's actually Miami. Derek King, how healthy is the knee? Is it if it's 100%? I'm not going to say that we're going to lose the game, we get blown out, but I'm saying it's going to be an interesting game on how this plays out. 19 returning starters, just like you said. That has to account for something in such a young offense that we're bringing back. But going even further to your point, talking about Bryce Young, look, a lot of past Alabama quarterbacks have been put in the position to have pressure on them to perform right away. Ask Blake Barnett, you know what I mean, in the USC game, and then Jalen Hurts comes in as a freshman, does his thing. Tua comes in the national championship, does his thing. But the big difference to me is this. Bryce Young came in 5-star quarterback. We've seen this before. Now you sign basically a $1 million NIL deal. Now the pressure may be even a little bit more, because now Alabama and that name is providing those paychecks in essentially, right, to you for bringing this in. And the thing about it is if you watch him through practice, if you watch him through high school, he's consistent to doing exactly what Tua did. And it's consistent to seeing what basically Bill O'Brien strives at his best with. Look what he did with Deshaun Watson. I mean, really, he implemented a lot of his offense into that. I expect a lot of things from Bryce Young. I don't expect a lot of it early. I think you're going to see a lot of dinking and dunking, screens. We have the players for that. But to your point on the running backs, that's where I'm most excited. Brian Robinson has been a backup, it seems like, for 10 years. It's time for him to shine, right? Like, this dude's put up, I think, almost 500 yards last year, 6 TDs, can catch out of the backfield. Trey Sanders now coming off 2 years in a row off a serious leg injury or hip injury, actually. And then you're talking about, we're not even talking about Jace McClellan or Roydell Williams. Stable running backs, like you said. So, no, I think the pressure is high, probably the first quarter. Can he get through that first quarter on the short throws and get him comfortable, get the running game going? Then I think you're going to see the pressure come down, and he should get comfortable quick. The kid's been in the spotlight his entire career.
Correct.
Right? I mean, that's just what it comes down to me. Got to get him comfortable.
Well, here's the thing that also to think about. Alabama has a massive offensive line. Evan Neal back, and Emil Ikior, Ikior, those kids, 6'7", 350 pounds, 6'3", 330 pounds, massive offensive line. Even though Chris Owens is back, fifth year or sixth year, I don't know. Let's count it up. But whatever the case may be, he has been in those trenches of big games. So, it's one of those things to me where, the cliche about special teams and great defense, that goes a long way. And, some people don't feel like Bill O'Brien likes to spin that ball around and throw it around. But I will say this much for him: he will do that. I mean, he will adapt, improvise, and overcome, and make some in-game adjustments. That I think that's what he really is good at. I've always said that some people shine when they're coordinators, and then when they become head coaches, it's kind of butt backwards, because the things that you got, the things that you did to get the job, the next job. When you become head coach, you don't get to do them as such.
Exactly.
Because you got to worry about things. I know I found that as my problem as head coach. You now you have to worry about everything. But I got the job because of what I did defensively. So Bill O'Brien is cagey, and he knows what to do. Doug Marrone is there. So you got some wiry veterans. And I still think they will stretch the field in certain situations, because here's the thing that I think will happen in this game. Miami is extremely small on defense, okay? And they did a great job of taking kids, go back to the Manny Diaz went back to the old Miami, fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Well, okay. So I can see Bama lining up, pounding, and what the pounding does. And Miami is fast. But a lot of those kids that are coming back as starters are not coming back at the same position they played last year.
100%. You know who else was fast? Notre Dame on defense in the national championship game. That's who else was fast. And then they realized, well, we need to be a little bit bigger. That's what it comes down to.
Well, I tell you what, and here's the thing. I don't think Miami is scared. I really believe this is a team, and I say this in front of everybody that's watching. There are some teams, they'll never admit it, but a lot of times, like the Art of War by Sun Tzu, the war is won before you even go into the war.
Exactly. Yep.
And from a mindset, to realize that, the depth of Alabama is substantially greater than most teams. Even if you can play with them for a half last year, they just had too much depth. So here we go again, not taking anything away from Miami and what they have, because I think they're going to put up a great game. They might even be in the lead for a while, to me, Jonathan. They might start up and jump out on them. But the wear and tear is 4 quarters. De'Aaron King can have a fascinating game, outstanding electric game. But what it comes down to is he doesn't play defense, okay?
Nope.
So he has to be on that sideline. And one of the good things that could possibly happen that Bama might try to say is, I tell you what, let's keep him on the sidelines for a while, and let's run downhill. So I think that Miami has an advantage in the speed deal, but the depth of what they have, and the players that they're returning, I think is going to be something that we're going to have to look at to see if they're able to handle themselves, and then the halftime adjustments. But tell me, what do you think from the receivers that we have? And I mean, we're loaded again. Okay.
Man, so here's I'll point out one of my keys to the game. One of my keys to the game was getting somebody involved outside of John Mechie III. Okay. Right? We knew he's the experience coming back. Jaleel Billingsley, Nick Saban got his shot on him, putting him third on the depth chart, by the way. Right. With Cameron Latou being at the top now. But one of my keys was getting somebody involved outside of him, whether that be the newly transferred from Ohio State, Jamison Williamson, who apparently is killing it in practice and has gained a lot of respect from the coaches. So I'm wanting to see what's out of him. I want to see what Slade Bolden is finally going to prove. I call him the little mini Hunter Renfro, right? He's just that dude that consistently is open he sits in those zones, man, and just, I don't know, he just finds a way to get open. That's just what it comes down to. He may not be the fastest guy on the team, but you don't have to be that. And then the freshman coming in, look, I don't even know what else to say. When you're talking about JoJo Earl, you're talking about Aggie Hall, you're talking about Ja'Cory Brooks. These dudes are like all time. Like this is, it's ridiculous. I personally think that this class of receivers coming up could possibly be better than you're talking about Judy, Ruggs, Devontae. And it sounds crazy, and Waddle, but look at what they're doing with what they have. Bill O'Brien, it's like Nick Saban said, Bill O'Brien's going to come in, and we're not going to change the offense for him. He just has to adapt what he knows to what we already have in place.
Correct.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel, man. That's just what it comes down to. And to go back and talking about your defense, because you can speak on this more than I can, what it takes for these defenders, these young defenders, because we're talking about youth here. You're talking about Malachi Moore. You're talking about, last year, Josh Jobe, learning, these quarter coverages, right? Cover two, the simple stuff, right? As far as cover two goes, deeper than the deepest, wider than the widest. But when you're talking about quarters, you're talking about mixed coverages, disguising defenses. I want to know what your take personally is on whether or not you think that this defense can go back to, I would say 6 years ago, to where we have a floating linebacker that can move around and make his own decisions. Because if you remember, Tim Williams at the time could line up basically behind a defensive lineman and decide which side is going on, because we just had that going on, the understanding of the defense.
Well, here's what has happened. The evolution of the game, Jonathan, has changed to where everybody wants to play in space. There's no huddles now. And everybody has 6'4", 6'5" receivers. Yeah. So the reality of it is Bama doesn't play they don't play any cover two. There is no cover two.
Okay, so there you go.
95% of what they do is off man, press man.
Thank you. That's what I needed to know.
Guys, it so well. Yeah, they have some cover three concepts that they use, and it's a three match deal where it might look like three on the back end, but there's some catch stuff that goes up under the coverage with the linebackers and the star position. But here's the fascinating part of what they do. It is 95% man coverage, whether it's off man, press man. That's what you're going to see in the NFL. That's what you're going to see with Coach Saban. Yes, he coaches the position. Nothing against the coaches that they have there on the defensive side of football, but Coach Saban is going to be around, everything that goes on with that team. Yeah. But his baby is still the secondary, because that's what he played. So he's still that guy. And here's the great part about it. With the advent of all of this spread stuff, it took away people like Tim Williams. You have matchup problems now, because now when Tim Williams played, you didn't have a lot of tight ends running a 4-4 and sub 4-4s. So that matchup changed. So then you have to go to a three safety look, which people don't realize that Coach Pruitt, back when he was coaching at 1A school in Alabama, had a lot to do with that whole concept of the three safety scheme. So, you don't bring in the fifth corner, because that fifth kid usually is the fifth kid for a reason. He's not playing with the corners or the safeties. So, but now the slot kids are now the slot receivers are 6'3", 6'2". They don't have to be small guys. So the three safety scheme is unbelievable. I think it's great for football, and they do use it in the NFL. So that time when Williams played, that's where they were. Now it's changed a little bit. And you have people like Will Anderson at 6'5", 250 pounds, and just looks like a walking all-pro. And yes, I'm bragging because I love the kid as a person, and he's more than just football, but his desire to be better. He went 8 games without a sack. And Jonathan, I was talking about him all up until that time. Every week he got close, but he was leading the team in quarterback pressures.
Thank you.
Once he got a chance to learn how to use his hands against collegiate players, It was one thing playing at Dutchtown High School and playing 5A football and using your hands against those kids, but when you had to play against older kids that were just as good as you, he finally figured it out, and he had 7 sacks. Now imagine he already knows what to do with his hands now, so he has an array of moves now, and so he's coming off the edge. Chris Allen coming, and Henry Toto. Wait, did we forget about him?
He's the guy lost in all this, by the way. Everything I've read, every video I've watched, I'll be honest with you, there was times where I spaced out, and I was talking about Jalen Moody. Because right. I'll be honest with you, I'm a huge Jalen Moody guy.
I am too.
And last year, I'll just be straight up honest with you, I call a lot of flack for this last year. I said, why is Dylan Moses in there? He's clearly something's wrong with his knee still. Jalen Moody has been talked about all throughout practice. The coaches keep saying how wonderful this dude is. He's got the defense down, everything else, and he just never got on the field. And I'm like, okay, this is his year. I finally get to prove my point. I've been talking all this crap all these years. I finally get on here and go, see what I'm talking about? And then Henry Toto, with 76 tackles coming from Tennessee as the leading tackler, shows up, and I'm like, here we go again. This dude wants so – I'm sorry, Jalen Moody. I know you don't care because I'm a little dude, but I'm sorry, man. You got to wait more time. Like, that's just what it comes down to. But thank you for the knowledge on the defense, man, because it's hard for me to get a hold of somebody that can teach me a lot about defense. It's not that I know a lot. It's just Alabama does so much. Sometimes it confuses me on what they're even trying to do. Now, obviously, you're talking about that star position, which to me, Minkah Fitzpatrick was probably like the owner of that position, right? He just owned it. The Dolphins misused him when he went to the Dolphins. Right. And the Steelers said, hey, let's use something similar to that, but in our scheme. And now the dude's a Pro Bowler. Funny how that stuff happens. But anyways.
Well, Jonathan, the reason why is because, we're talking about the Steelers. I mean, if you talk about Kirk Olivadotti and all of the geniuses that have been over there with the Steelers, and they are 3-4 scheme for life.
Yep.
Minkah Fitzpatrick, you're playing off man or catch principles that we call them in the coverage, and then all of a sudden you get in the pros and they want you to play on the hash and stay on the hash, and now your eye discipline changes. Your eye discipline changes if you haven't done that. Don't take anything away from his skill set, but it is up to what those defensive coordinators like. If they like, 2 high safeties and 2 read and 2 sink and all that stuff where you're playing 2 high safeties and you're going to keep them there for life, and then the corner's going to take the run. Well, that happened to Georgia in national championship game. And I'm sorry, I had to bring it up, but I love you guys. I live here in Georgia, and I love Kirby Smart, but those things happen. But that's once again, Jonathan, where those 2 coaches knew each other. And, it was a look off with the eyes. And that's not what Minkah was or Minkah is. He is truly, he is another version of Troy Polamalu with speed that can cover everything. That's scary. He's one that can play safety, high safety. He can play box safety. He can play star safety. And if he gets caught out there, if he has to cover somebody, because under Coach Saban, everybody in that secondary has to learn how to play all the positions. And that's special. That's just not, nothing against other college coaches, but everybody doesn't do it like that.
No, of course, 100%. It comes down to knowledge of the game, man. That's what makes him so good. That's what makes Bill Belichick so good at New England. And to even bring up to your point, you're talking about, you're not trying to take away from his skill set because of who Minkah Fitzpatrick is, and he can't do that. I mean, a perfect example of that would be Mac Jones being drafted to the New England Patriots.
There you go.
He probably wouldn't be doing what he's doing if he got drafted to the 49ers or the Jets or the Jaguars. It's just he fit into a system that was literally built for him and his skill set.
And if you notice, Jonathan, he was in Tua was a true RPO quarterback. I mean, he flourishes in that. Where you have two safeties and the high-low read principles. But Mac Jones was a different type of quarterback. And he was that really a true pro-ready quarterback. And everything with those guys is now becoming a thread the needle and pocket stuff, but more importantly, roll out pocket throws.
Exactly.
And he's more adept at that. So it's fascinating how Coach Saban has always been able to get guys to play at an optimum level. But more important than that, Jonathan, he's got coaches that are at the cream of the crop of what they do. And I think that is one of the most beautiful things, because I believe that Manny Diaz was the right person to come back to Miami. He needed to come back home and take over that program. Nothing against Mark Richt, but sometimes new blood is good. And so many people leave Miami to go all over the nation to go play football. So now, Coach Diaz is able to get those kids to stay home. And some of those kids are also the top players in the nation. And now they're staying home playing for him. So that's what's going to make this game great.
That's overlooked so much. I've talked about actually a while back when Manny Diaz got hired. I said, this is the guy. Like Mark Richt, I get it. He did wonderful things at Georgia, and a lot of people are going to say he couldn't get over the hump and he couldn't win the big games. Sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes it's about you coming in and understanding that this guy can come in and recruit at the highest level where the recruiting needs to happen. Right. And that's in Miami. That's Miami-Dade County. That's keeping those kids down there. If I remember correctly, it all started for me when I started paying attention. I believe it was Amari Cooper that was that played down there, right? That's where he played high school. And I started following, obviously I followed IMG Academy and all these other bigger schools, but I started paying more attention to Southern Florida. My wife's actually from Miami. So we just came back from Miami. And I started paying more attention to the players down there. And I'm like, you know what? This hire wasn't about being high profile. This hire was about bringing somebody in that can recruit to keep the kids here. Correct. And he's not going to leave. You know what I mean? Like, let him do his thing and build this program in the long term. Now, does this sound familiar? Because the coach in the ACC did this. His name, Clemson, right? Honestly, that's what I feel like is going on here. They felt like it worked out for Clemson, obviously bringing him in. And now you bring in Manny Diaz for Miami, and just give him time. Let him sit there for a couple of years, bring in his guys, recruit his people, and let it work itself out. And I feel like you're starting to see the results. Derek King was at Houston and killed it at Houston, and he reached out to Derek King. And bringing Derek King over, like you said, in the short term, yes, it's a big one short term, but this is big long term. Right. Because this is going to have profounding effects as far as Derek King almost recruiting other players into Miami. And I think that gets overlooked because the Houston market also was huge, which is where he came from. So, but yeah. That's all I got to say on
Texas, that. Going into Texas, which is what Alabama does. Alabama gets the top players out of Texas, and now he's going to put on a short-term show. I think that he's going to do a good job. We, meaning Bama, have always had problem with athletic quarterbacks. I mean, that's the MO. It's always been coach. And here's the thing. Back to you mentioned earlier about Pete Golden. When the season started off the way they did, I really knew how many young players that were out there. Like I said, always going to the clinics and the camps there, and knowing some of the coaches that have previously been on the staff that have gone on to bigger positions in other places.
Yeah,
they just knowing the youth that has been part of that system there. And, I was one of those that felt like Pete Golden got a bad rap because everybody wanted to take shots at somebody. Listen, that is Coach Nick Saban's defense. It is Nick Saban's defense. And as long as Pete Golden, I had a wonderful friend of mine who actually knows Pete Golden very well. I'm not going to say his name on the show because he's just my guy and I love him like a brother to me. But he said, hey, listen, there's only one person that Pete Golden has to answer to. Yep. And that's the man that signs that paycheck for him. And that guy is Nick Saban. So as long as Saban is satisfied with what you're doing and knowing the maturation it's going to take, with all these young players, then you're fine. But the media, the fans gave Pete Golden, you know what I mean, H-E-double-L, H-E hockey sticks. And it wasn't right.
I got to speak on that a little bit for you. When Pete Golden showed up, I was a big fan of the hire. Number one, I live in San Antonio right now, and I was down here. You know what I mean? So he got hired in from UT San Antonio. I said, okay, Nick Saban's definitely changing things up on the defense. He's not going after someone with a lot of experience in the D1 or any NFL experience. He's bringing in a guy that's young they can probably keep around and they can mold a little bit. And and by the way, he's kind of, if you go back in the earlier days, he came through the Nick Saban coaching tree, not directly, but indirectly, right?
Yes,
So
he did.
when
Southeast
Pete,
Louisiana, I know exactly who coach you're
exactly,
talking
thank
about.
you.
Who
So
Nick Saban listens to if that particular coach because they're just alike.
So, I mean, we're digging deep now, right? And I try not to do because we don't have so much time on this show. I would love
Gotcha.
just to keep going. But so you bring him into an extremely, like you said, young defense. You're
Right.
talking about an evolution of offenses coming in to the SEC, right? Ole Miss has already started their the Lane train was there before Lane Kiffin,
Gotcha.
like it or not. You had the Johnny Manziels, you had the Cam Newtons, you had even Garcia with South Carolina in 2010, blah, blah, blah. We can go on and on all this. But a very youthful defense. His first time becoming, a defense coordinator at a big program. And then the second, so he gets the bad rap on the first year. And you're right. Fans gave that dude, like you said, HELL, man, like big time.
Yeah.
The second year, it was even worse, even though it seemed like every single linebacker got injured. The dude had no linebackers, and we had basically no safeties. Everybody just decided to get injured. And people's giving him crap. And I'm like, what do you mean? The dude has nothing to work with. You got to give him a shot. So last year looked definitely better. And I feel like I said, this year, I think Pete Golding can finally put that, like, I'm here. I got a healthy team, knock on wood somewhere, like team stays healthy. It can make his mark. And I feel like he wants that because I feel bad for the guy in a sense because he's just caught so much stuff, man.
Yeah.
Like, really, it's been brutal from Alabama. I catch a lot of crap from Alabama fans for the stuff I say because I try to be unbiased. But, like, when I speak positive about Pete Golden, people are like, are you stupid? Do you watch film? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, the dude hasn't had a chance.
That's funny. It's funny you mention that because I get just for me, in my defense, being a veteran coach here in the Metro Atlanta area for over 20, 25 years, and lots of friends of mine that coach on the collegiate level, I have been blessed to be around not only Coach Saban, but I just learned some great things from some great guys on the collegiate level. Me being a disciple, a student of the 3-4 odd front and press man, off man coverage, the tidbits of what goes into continuity for kids when they come into a program.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about coaches. Coach Saban has always been the common denominator at University of Alabama, but what some of those fans don't realize, but there has been, along with the success at University of Alabama, there's been massive turnover with coaches every year. And I remember when Coach Golden, Pete, did not come in as the defensive coordinator. See, that's what people don't understand.
No.
He came in as a position coach,
and
he worked his craft. And some other guys, after a couple of national championships, guys left to go various places, go to the league, go to other colleges. So Pete, he earned his wings on that. So that's the part that people don't get. So just think of it. Just think if you were an 18-year-old kid and you were recruited by one coach at Alabama and they would turn around and win a national championship and that coach is gone, but that coach recruited you for the last 6 months or 8 months. And now he's gone. And now you got to deal with another coach. And then after that, you get there as a freshman and you learn from that position coach and he turns around and leaves and goes to the NFL. So Alabama's had that. So Pete Golden, that's the thing that sports fans don't really address. They don't know. And it's okay that they don't know. That's why you got guys like me who can stand up here and defend what he's done because the proof is in the pudding and he is taskmaster. And, that's whole evolution of all of these coaches leaving and to have the continuity that they still have, Johnathan, is amazing in itself. And you're right. You and I could go on all night, and sports fans, I tell you, we're gonna get on his podcast and talk. So you need to follow him as well. But we're gonna get back to this. We're gonna get back together. This won't be the first time you see he and I together talking.
No, definitely not.
Talk. So listen, let's end it with these two things. What do you think is going to be the keys to winning for Alabama in this game this Saturday?
So I had to write them down because I had so much stuff going through my head. But I broke it down to 4 simple ones. It's just what it comes down to. The first one is going to be Brian Robinson and starting off strong in the run game. Having, you know what I mean? We're talking about all new running backs here, really, realistically. None of them have seen serious field time except Brian Robinson. Even then, he's never been a starter. So a fast start on the run game. Already pointed out the other one, someone other than John Mechie the third at the wideout. You know what I mean? You got to rely on more than just him. I don't think it's gonna be a problem. I just want to see that. Another one's going to be contain Derek King from the long runs and test his knee. And what I mean by test his knee is give him a chance to run a little bit and see exactly how healthy that knee is, because that's going to play a lot on the defense, right? And this is just me. I don't know much about Josh Jobe, or I know a little bit about Josh Jobe, but not Jalen Armour Davis. I would like to see, but not see, the test of Derek King throwing outside the hashes, because in the past, the one thing we've been struggling on in the past couple of years has been those deep throws outside the hashes, man, those post patterns and stuff like that. Like, so I'm not going to say contain it or avoid it, but I'm going to say I want to see how our defense reacts to it, especially Jalen Armour Davis. Like I said, I haven't got to see him live action in a game. Well, nobody has.
Right.
So I want to see that. But yeah, as far as Alabama, I feel like those are just must-see ones.
Well, it's funny you mentioned some of the same things I jotted down myself. I also wanted to put in some keys to the game. Miami's defense, which is getting all the raves for being really good, and they are.
Yeah.
They giving up 23 points a game last year. A lot of kids flying around, but I will admit this: there's some kids that are playing in different positions this year that didn't play them last year. Miami's heaviest starting linebacker, heaviest starting linebacker, is 212 pounds.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so yes, fast, but I had the privilege of being a coach of the Georgia team in the Georgia-Florida high school game, and one of the years we went down there and won down there in South Florida is because we lined up and we pounded the Florida team, and most of those kids from Boca and Dade and all those areas down there. Shout out to Anthony Jackson, the organizer of Prep in Sports, getting us down there to play back then. But the Miami football players, I don't think they're going to be able to handle that pound, that continuous pound, and it's just because of size. See, you can be fast all you want, but if I'm just going to run straight at you, then it doesn't matter how fast you are. Now it's my weight on your weight. I think that Bill O'Brien is definitely going to take advantage of that and keep Derek King off the field. Because I believe, like you, Jonathan, he can, if they want to test the knee and they want to find out how good the knee is, he might tell them to pay admission. If they bought the ticket, they're going to And you better be careful. That's one of my wife's favorite lines. She tells you, if you want to get this show, you better, if you bought the ticket, you're going to get the show. So you really don't want Derek King to come out there and showcase like that, even though he's a wonderful player and a leader on the field. So weather the storm for Alabama, weather that storm, that Miami hurricane, for lack of a better word, because offensively there's going to be one. And then can Miami's offense deal with that rush from Alabama?
No chance.
Truly amazing. Everybody's saying over under 62. I got news for y'all sports fans. That doesn't matter. You need to say the over under of 45, and that's where you need to keep it, because I think that if Alabama's defense gets a chance to swell up against that Miami offense, I think that the scales are tilted. Bama has always faced people with a lot of starters on defense. That's nothing new to them, and they've seen the cream of the crop. But sports fans, Jonathan, I'm telling you, that key to the game will be if Bryce Young does not have to win the game for Alabama. Let the defense do what they do. And I think
I agree to that.
A major key to the game.
Now, another thing I'll point out, I guess it could be a key to the game, I feel like people need to pay attention to, is the transfer from Oklahoma, Charleston Rambo, from Miami. He's no scrub. You got to pay attention to the kid. How much of an impact he's going to make, I don't know. But I'm actually, as a overall general football fan, I'm really intrigued to see how he does at Miami with Derek King. So, but I wanted to throw out there real quick.
And I will say this, and I said this earlier before we go, sports fans, and once again, shout out to my wonderful producer, Jeremiah Long, the man behind the scenes of all of this. I said in my predictions for Alabama this season, I said, we're gonna lose a game somewhere. I mean, and it might not, it might be a tough game, but it's like Coach Saban says, you learn more when you lose. It gives you more to work with to get
Yep.
better. So don't panic and get mad that I said that. I'm talking about it from a coaching standpoint. Right now, the team and I coach, and here in North Atlanta, we're undefeated, but we got a bunch of lightweight kids, and we're in one of the toughest regions in Georgia, and with Westlake and Lovejoy and Langston Hughes. So we haven't faced the monsters yet, and the monsters are coming. So the same thing for Alabama. Everybody's giving their best shot every weekend.
Exactly.
So we have won a national championship with a loss during the season. So I really believe that this is going to be a great game. Miami's going to come out and shock them. It's going to be like a hurricane for a little while, but the grind of the game is going to roll over, as in roll tide.
The depth. Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought of that, sports fans. And I think that they'll be victorious. Give me a prediction on the score before we leave.
31-17. I think it's going to be closer than what people think. And I'm going off of that by saying that this is off of Derek King being 100%.
Awesome. I agree. I said 31-20. I thought that, Miami's, the electricity of the special teams will definitely, in field position, will come into play. Both teams, Miami has an awesome punter, one of the tops in the nation from last year. Yep. And it's going to turn into a game of field position. In that case, I just don't see Miami marching up and down the field the whole game. And yes, there will be some ouches and some boo-boos for Bama a couple of times, and they got to adjust. But the greatest part I tell my players is, success is not convenient. It's not convenient. And, those diamonds that come out of those mountains didn't come out shining. They had to be burned, cauterized. There was some knocking around. And so, hey, this Saturday, 3:30, it's going down. And Johnathan, you and I are going to get together again.
Yes.
Talk 100%. About what happened in this show. And you get a chance right now. Give people your Twitter so they can just know where to follow you from.
So my Twitter handle is Roll Tide Lewis. So at Roll Tide Lewis. And obviously the YouTube channel is just College Football with Johnathan Lewis. Probably on the screen below or whatever. You can tell how to spell it. But before we get off here, somebody's got to give some love to the kicker, Will Riker. The dude went 14-14 last year. Sorry, I had to put that in there before we get off here. The dude deserves some love.
Yeah, show the kicker some love. Exactly. Will, I'm sorry. Will, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean for that to happen. I said Will a couple of times, and you probably thought I was still talking about Will Anderson, and you're right, I was. But Will, we didn't forget about you. And all the sports fans down there in Tuscaloosa who follow that kicking game, hey, listen, it wins games. It also wins championships. So with that being said, I've enjoyed you on the show tonight, Johnathan. Thank you for taking time. Like I said, I'm just getting out of practice. And hey, listen, we're gonna do this again real soon. Hopefully next week, you and I can get together and let's talk it up some more and see what things go from there and follow each other. And thank you for taking time to be with me tonight.
Oh yeah, 100%, man. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Thank you. So if you enjoyed the show, we appreciate you joining and sharing. Thank you so much for 100 yards of football sports. Have a